Hello, this is Greg Smalley on Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast, joined today, as I frequently am, by Giles Edwards. I got the finger right today. Giles,
Hello.
how are you? Okay, and later in the broadcast, which isn't really a broadcast, but the recording, will be joined by author Paolo Zelati, author of American Nightmares, which was a book that was originally written in Italian and has only just now been published in English. And in that book, he interviews most of the major American horror directors from the 60s to the 90s, including such folks as George Romero, quite famously Jack Hill, Carpenter, Richard Matheson, the author, and just about anybody you could think of. We'll talk with him about horror movies in general. First, we're going to go through a number of new releases, and we do have a lot this week, although they are of varying sort of significance. I guess they're always of varying sort of significance, but this year it's a particularly, or this week, it's a particularly motley bunch. Look at all those.
That's that is a mix.
Yeah, we have less than 3 minutes to spend on each of them. So you can't go too long on the descriptions there,
All
Joe.
right.
But let's start with this one, which is in festivals right now. If you want to describe it in brief.
Yes, this is one of those contemporary superhero style movie posters with main image of main character and, smaller versions of pretty much, I imagine, everyone else who's a major character in this. And they are suspended over a very blown up looking townscape with UFOs and fireballs and, all kinds of scorched earth something. On the very top, there's a delightful flying saucer item with big bat wings right below which I imagine is the main villain of the piece, looking very pale but well coiffed with a hooded cape. And this is the poster of the new film from a friend of the site, Jacob Scrippa, and it is heavily inspired by B movies and silly comedy.
It's called Vampire Zombies from Space. It's black and white. We have the trailer up on the site. Um, Trailer's a little bit, tiny bit not safe for work.
Tiny bit.
A little tiny bit. A lot of black and white gore in it and some sexual suggestiveness. Um,
Oh, those kids with
yeah,
their gore
a
and suggestiveness.
self-pleasuring zombie, which reminds me of Rumors, which I just saw, by the way. But anyway, this is currently in festivals, and I would suspect it shows up on VOD probably in January of 2025. It'll have finished its festival run, maybe December, but late 2024, early 2025, you can probably expect to see that. And we might have Jake back on the show to talk about it then. But let's move on to something that is in at least one theater this week.
All
Uh,
right. This is a man. He's on a scrappy bit of beachside by, I'm gonna guess, an ocean. And he is older, middle-aged. He's holding up. No, he's not. He's resting his hand on a very spindly looking, dead, barren tree thing, seated by which is a child. I'm gonna guess the age, somewhere between the ages of 3 and 6, with a sun hat thing going on. In the far distance, I can see a looming tower, might be a cairn or something, and then there's some more rocks. All together, very windswept and barren looking.
Yeah, and that's actually the island of, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but Faroe, uh, which is where Ingmar Bergman lived. But this is not an Ingmar Bergman movie. Uh, it is an Andrei Tarkovsky movie, and it is The Sacrifice from 1986, which has been restored and re-released. Kino has restored and re-released a bunch of Tarkovsky movies, the later Tarkovsky movies, and this is the last one. This is the movie Tarkovsky made in 1986 as he was dying from cancer. It was released in 1986, so he died almost immediately after this was completed. It's about a man who believes there's an apocalypse coming and wants to sacrifice himself to stop it so that his family can live on. And it's Tarkovskian.
Hmm.
Giles, did you see the trailer of this?
I did, and my God, was I glued to the screen when I saw that massive thing of milk crash to the floor. Whoa.
There are some similarities in certain scenes to Stalker with the rattling glasses. Um,
Oh,
I
yes.
have not seen it. Uh, Alfred Aker, of course, the late Alfred Aker, who wrote for our site, was a big fan of everything Tarkovsky, and so he liked this one too. But it's in film form in New York City this week. It'll be expanding to some other venues, and then Kino will put out the 4K UHD very soon thereafter. But let's go on to another one that's still in theaters, but now also on VOD, giving you the opportunity to see it, you, the viewer at home. Giles, what are we looking at?
If memory serves correctly, we're looking at one of six people used to perform as this particular character with a very striking, classy walking stick held in hand, eyeballs peeled wide open, staring directly at the camera lens, a brush back of neck, shoulder length, brown hair, seated in what looks like a very late 60s or early 70s uh, modern, and I put some air quotes there. Uh, I don't know, living room. And let's see, what else is distinguished about this gentleman? Well, the mustache is very eye-catching. Thin, but wavy, pointed, and expertly contoured in a famous style for at least one individual who I think had this mustache all his adult life.
And of course, it is Dali, a picture of an actor playing Dali in the movie Dali.
Right. There are six A's,
Six
one for
A.
each of the actors who perform as the artist, maybe.
I hadn't thought of that
I
possibility.
only did just now, and I was thinking, wait,
That might
six?
explain.
Oh.
So this is from Quentin Dupieux. It's very highly anticipated by us. A surrealist film biopic of a surrealist auteur. If you know Quentin Dupieux, you know it's going to go in some absurdly funny directions. And this one has gotten really good reviews, and critics aren't always kind to Dupieux. They sometimes, a lot of weird specialists can find his style tiresome, but this one has 97% positive at Rotten Tomatoes, which is very encouraging.
Yeah.
So it's on VOD now. Everybody can uh, take a look at it. I'll probably take a look at it very soon. And that's very highly anticipated, and we're very happy it's here. Any further thoughts, Giles?
No, I'm looking forward to this as well, even if I imagine you're probably going to be jumping on the opportunity to review it yourself.
I probably will, is my guess. So that's a big one. Now, here's another one that we have discussed a lot. Don't really need to discuss it much again, but Giles, very, very quickly, it's
All
the
right.
back cover of a Blu-ray.
Black
So
cover of a Blu-ray of one of my favorite films from Fantasia this year. Primary image is a cheap, chintzy 70s era looking resort thing. Youngish woman sitting dressed in a towel, and oh, she is teasing her hair with a hair blower implement with an attachment. And it looks like she's screaming at something just off screen that we can't see. And below is a lineup of protagonist, antagonist, ancillary character, and assistant to protagonist who showed up in a previous movie from this filmmaker, all looking either distressed, bloodied, or both.
yeah, yeah, their ancillary character was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I will kick myself once I watch it again and remember, oh yeah, she was major. But
Is that the mother, maybe?
No.
Under
Yes. Oh
punishment.
God. Yeah, I should I should I haven't seen this movie in some months, but it is very good even if I can't quite Oh, she's a henchwoman,
Oh, probably, yeah. Okay.
say. Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay,
the
it's coming
movie
back
is
now.
Cuckoo, just out this year. I will read simply the synopsis on the back of the Blu-ray here. Gretchen leaves America to live with her father, who has moved to the German Alps with his new family. After arriving, Gretchen is plagued by strange noises and bloody visions until she discovers a shocking secret about her own family. So, not giving away too much there. We'll mention the bonus features on this Blu-ray, which this movie has been available on VOD for a while now, so many people have seen it, but the Blu-ray will give you also a making of feature called The Making of Cuckoo, something called the Cuckoo Video Diaries, and on-set interviews with Hunter Schafer. I'm going to guess that's pronounced Frauke Furl and Dario Mendez Acosta.
Deleted scenes, and yes, ancillary character I believe is the stepmother. Now that it's coming back to me, so
Yeah.
you were right.
Okay. So for Cuckoo fans, here it is. This is a really good one for you.
Until we get the Snyder cut, which I'm sure will be well, not a thing as
Yeah,
you do forever.
yeah. Giles, you had thought there are deleted scenes in it. You had thought that there might be some sort of interference, or
Yes,
you
I
had
was told
theorized.
by one source, but one source I trust and who would know that Neon wanted Singer to go more in a commercial direction than Singer originally had hoped to, which is why the first half of the film is very much what I'd expect from the director, and the second half is still very good, but seems like he might have had his shall we say, more creative impulses curbed by the people with money.
So it's possible that those deleted scenes might support
Mm.
your theory. It might be a good one for you, particularly, Giles.
Yeah.
We do get the commission if you buy it through our link, even though
Oh, well, I'll be making us money then. Great.
just throwing that out there. So that's Cuckoo, but now we're on to the next one that's on Blu-ray. Go ahead and describe what we see.
Sideways movie poster, deep space, lots of blackened stars. Lower right hand corner has one of those outer space nebula aurora looking cool light things. There's a camera flare, which I suspect is added post production because I bet they didn't put a camera out there. Dominating the left hand side are two faces of let's see, one is a very famous actor and the other is the son of a very famous actor, and they're divided by a tall, vertical, bluish light thing and look a little bit, I don't know, worn out. Uh, yeah, more. I'm going to go with worn out, considering I know the context of what they're going through here. So there's some science fiction-y stuff going on with these two people in deep space.
All right, so it's called Slingshot. Missed this one when it first came out in theaters, did not mention it. Maybe there was good reason for that. I thought seeing it on the Blu-ray list, I read the description and thought, oh, you know what? That sounds like something we should at least mention. It's a described as a psychological thriller set in space, a sci-fi movie. The movie is about three astronauts headed off to Titan, Saturn's moon of Titan, a journey that will take them many years. And one of them goes kind of crazy on the journey. That would be Casey Affleck. And Lawrence Fishburne is the other famous name involved in this. Did you see the trailer, Giles, or have any other
Yeah,
thoughts?
I did. Obviously, Lawrence Fishburne is, he's going to be good wherever we see him. Casey Affleck, it was hard to tell the quality of that performance since at least the bits we saw of his character, it already seemed to have started to deteriorate somehow or another psychologically. I liked the spaceship looked cool. It looked nice, but not, overly flashy. Sort of like in Moon. So a competent set production design there. Lighting all looked nice. And as you say, this may or may not be of interest to us weird movie people, depending upon how psychologically this, that, or the other Casey Affleck's character is.
Yeah, I'll say that I movie apparently contains I think, inevitably homages to 2001 and to Solaris. One of the, like the design of the spaceship particularly reminded me of Solaris with
Hmm.
the little sort of corridor that goes around the outside of the ship, and the living quarters are on the inside, looked derived from Tarkovsky's movie, perhaps.
Yeah, there was one thing that I kind of question, and maybe the movie explains it. This is a spacecraft going into deep space to one of Jupiter's moons. I would really hope that they wouldn't allow anyone to bring a firearm into that kind of environment where any hole in the exterior means doom for the ship.
Ah, that's a good point.
But
Okay, that's Slingshot. I will say not good reviews on this one. So I didn't know that before I selected it for coverage. I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes, 33%, which is very, very low.
hmm,
But somebody likes it. So
5.7 out of 10 on IMDb. So that's like, eh,
that's a little bit, that's not good, but it's better than the 33% critical would translate. So let's move on to stuff that's going to be of more general interest. This one's going to excite a lot of people, not me, but a lot of people. Giles, it's a very attractive cover. You want to
Yeah, so this is really cool looking. This is I don't know, like a pastel watercolor, I think is the medium for this. And what we can see is a gaunt child with a cap with large rabbit style ears, very exaggerated ears in this picture. Can't make out any facial features on the individual, but scanning down the photo, we see he's seated possibly on a toilet. I don't know, but has some crummy shoes on and is holding an accordion. And all this is done in a kind of splatter painted style that I'm sure has significance within this movie. I haven't seen it, though. It was your review for this. That was one of my very first reviews I read on 366 back over 10 years ago now that helped draw me into the fold.
and I convinced you not to see this movie, which
So
everyone,
so far, I mean, I'd seen this filmmaker's famous movie before and was pretty underwhelmed by it. And so this seemed more interesting, at least from the subject matter, if not the execution.
well, this, of course, as most people, listeners will recognize from Giles' description, is, of course, Gummo, Harmony Korine's, I would say, most famous movie. I guess Giles thinks Kids is more famous.
Well, that was the one that I recall reading put him on the map as the enfant terrible of modern filmmaking. And I
Yeah,
guess I consider it better known because I've seen it as opposed to me not, I haven't seen this one.
yeah, Kids was noteworthy because he didn't direct it. He wrote the screenplay, but he
Oh,
was only
okay.
19 when he wrote the screenplay, so that was a selling point. He must have been 21 or 22 when he made this movie, which that part is very impressive. As everyone, if you haven't seen it, it's a pastiche movie of kind of white trash people, various scenes intercut, um, not much of a through line, some very absurd characters like this boy who dresses as a bunny, doesn't talk, kid who bathes and eats spaghetti in the bathtub with a piece of bacon taped to the wall,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. Uh, I was not a fan. However, I'm in the minority. I was a little surprised Criterion selected it, but that might be my bias against the movie. Uh, I think it's probably got a big enough fan base that it makes sense.
It was number 20 on the canonical list, so at least you got it out of the way.
Yeah, that's because it was just because of availability and the
Uh,
yeah, the number on the list doesn't matter. Doesn't
no,
mean
no.
anything. Um, we'll say it's a from Criterion, it's a 4K restoration. So there's a 4K UHD disc and a Blu-ray. Special features on the Blu-ray include a new interview with Corrine and two old archival interviews, one from 1997, where he talks with Werner Herzog, who
Hmm.
was a big proponent and booster of Kareem's career, and a what I'm guessing is a TV show called Split Screen Projections episode from 2000. Uh, Not a lot other than that. Um, so there we go. A lot of people will be obviously interested in this one.
Rock and roll.
Here's one that I would be interested in, except I kind of already have it, but go ahead, Giles, and
All right.
describe.
Well, this 4K Ultra HD cover art is done appropriately in a German expressionist style, and is pen and ink drawing, possibly with some muted gray bluishness painting thing going on, of a famous one of the many famous stills you could grab from this movie, which is comprised of virtually every still is something that would look pretty neat on a wall. We have a lean figure dressed all in black with slightly messy black hair, very pale even for a black and white picture, looking down over the sleeping form of a young woman in a bedroom whose geometry and dimensions are hard to pinpoint considering the style in question. And she is looking very peaceful for someone being loomed over by such a not quite menacing figure, but one that is certainly would be surprising to wake up to.
Yes. And this is, of course, the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which, of course, has been released before, but this is the 4K UHD version. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness, a 4K
Hmm.
UHD. I have the Blu-ray of this from Kino, who also released the 4K UHD. It is substantially the same. Um, Obviously, it's not in 4K, but in terms of special features and so forth, the one thing that is new on this 4K is there is a new score
Hmm.
from Jeff Beal. Uh, yes, that's the new score, which makes this set have a total of three alternative scores to listen to. There's Jeff Beal's score, whatever that is, the 2014 orchestral score that Kino commissioned, and the alternate, very funky and beat-based score by DJ Spooky,
Hmm.
which I did not recommend. Might be good music. It probably is good music, but didn't really go well with the subject matter. But it's an interesting curiosity. Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, of course. If you don't know about Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, 1920s, the expressionist classic, famous for its slanted, jagged, very disorienting sets, psychological thriller, has a twist ending, which you will guess because it has been repeated so many times, but was new and shocking then.
And I can say from a vague recollection from my film studies days in college that the twist ending that was provided actually was forced on it by the studio producing it. The original film was intended to be, shall we say, the narrative was intended to be taken more at face value than the distributors at the time wanted, and so it was bookended with the intro and conclusionary remarks from the protagonist of the film.
I believe that's correct. That strikes a memory in me. Um, so that's the 4K. If you need Cabinet of Dr. Caligari in 4K or a third score, or you don't have it yet and you happen to have a 4K player,
Yeah, I
good.
guess I'm sort of curious with a film this old, it was, preserved a lot better than many of its era, but yeah, I guess I'd be very interested to see the Blu-ray, normal Blu-ray side by side with the 4K, just to see how much further they could tweak something that at this point is what, 104 years old?
Yeah, it's over a century old. Yeah, I was curious about that as well. Do films from the 1920s really gonna benefit from 4K? Um, but, you know, if 4K becomes the standard
Yeah.
in the future, you'll want it, unless there's some compatibility, which there should be.
Yeah.
Okay, on to one for anime fans. Giles, you cannot possibly describe this,
No, I
but
can
do
perhaps
do your best to give
I'll
a sense.
try to quickly count just how many separate figures are here. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. All right, the very least 10. Very busy cover to this Blu-ray release of an anime classic. The very dominant, most forefront image is a long samurai style sword, although I might be using the wrong term. Definitely a long katana, regardless of who may or may not be using it at the time. And holding this katana is a determined looking, beefy gentleman with a black shirt, flowing black mane of hair, but taking up a lot more space off to that character. I guess the front, since I don't know, off to that side of one of that character is a pale young woman. I'm going to say very, obviously done up in makeup of the period which this film takes place in, and she is looking rather world weary, which from the description I read is very appropriate for her. There's a gosh, I guess we can see a buttock on this cover, so I guess we'll have to slap a little NSFW here. Um, thank you, Greg. A tattooed woman who looks devilishly happy. There's another person with a katana. There's some shadowy, monstery figures, and it's all just kind of splatted there with a lot of lines and busyness that I don't mind, but I'm not sure. Well, I guess they might be trying to capture the moving visual energy of the film in question.
Exactly. The energy. So this is Ninja Scroll, a movie which contains neither ninjas nor scrolls, but does contain a lot of sex and violence. Um, I reviewed this in the very early days of the site as a reader request, and that's why we're mentioning it here. I did not find it to be weird. It's more of a, anime thing. It's got demons and so forth. So, character designs with monsters, people unfamiliar with the genre might think that this is weird, but it's pretty firmly within the fantasy genre. To be honest, I remember almost nothing about the story, nothing about the story at all. And yet I know that there are going to be people who are interested in this. It is a collector's edition. It is a steel book. And I do believe that it has a commentary by the director and by one of the character designers, which I do not think was on previous. I wasn't on the DVD that I first watched it on.
And even if it was, those are getting sort of pricey in secondary market. Is this Blu-ray out now or is it coming out soon? Because the website Amazon is showing it to sort of not exist.
It was released October 24th, 22nd,
Okay.
but it's not in stock at the moment. They either sold out or didn't get copies. Happens at times from Amazon. If you're interested in ordering it from Amazon, you can probably get it at a future date.
Mhm.
There are other ways. There are other retailers other than Amazon too. We just
That is true.
use them as the default because it's one-stop shopping, and they give us commissions where other people
Yeah.
don't.
Oh,
But
I'm already seeing secondary market options for the Steelbook somewhere between 80 and $140. So
my goodness, my for this new steelbook, wow,
I think so. Yeah, 2024. Yep.
expensive.
So
There didn't
sorry for
seem
not
to
tipping you
be,
all off weeks ago, I guess.
yeah, there didn't seem to be anything, really special about it, other than the perhaps the commentary. And I guess people do love steelbooks. It's nice packaging. It's a popular movie.
Guess so.
Maybe that's all there is to it, or maybe it really is very limited in number. Let me see. Sometimes they'll say they only made 1,000 of them or something. It doesn't say anything like that here. But that's Ninja Scroll. And moving on to our last movie, Giles, go ahead and describe this comic book style poster.
All right, comic book style, very and late 90s made for TV kind of look too massive, two-clawed, one-thumbed demon swiping at I'm gonna guess our heroes here in the foreground while standing tall above them and looking right at us, the viewer. Behind him is I think that's a mushroom cloud emerging from some sort of desolate hell-looking scape, and we see the backs of three people, one on far right with a cowboy-style hat and one of those shirts I only ever see in country western shows or, the like. Uh, Foreground guy from the back we see is a six-shooter, and it looks like the Imperial Japanese flag emblazoned on a leather bomber style jacket. And far left is generic man in jeans, button-down shirt, holding some sort of submachine gun in there. I'm going to guess probably fairly vain attempts to quell this massive entity which is threatening them and us.
Yeah, I think the garment is a duster
That's it.
that you see, typically associated with Clint Eastwood in his westerns. So this is Despiser, a shot-on-video movie from, let's see, what's the year on that? I'm going to say 2002.
That was it,
Um,
2002? Okay.
the YouTube trailer claims 1998, but if you look it up, IMDb says 2003. It was a movie that was long in production, a labor of love by one man. The story is about a man who finds himself in purgatory fighting a demon named the Despiser with an array of allies from different time periods, and it uses a bunch of period CGI imagery that perhaps doesn't translate as well to today's cinematic presentation. It has a cheesiness, let's say, of its own.
Yeah, the overall, since in the trailer at least there was so very much of it, I think it actually I volunteered to review this for next week. I'll say that now. Partly because there was a really cool image consistency of this late 90s CGI look with, people seeming themselves to be superimposed on this I'll guess I'll try to describe it as very uncanny valley looking purgatory milieu with violence and demons and so on. So, um, yeah,
One.
definitely. Anyone who is critical of 90s era low budget CGI should steer well clear of this. But if you can vibe with the aesthetic, I'm optimistic about enjoying this.
Okay. Well, and that's from a company called Visual Vengeance, only, well, I shouldn't say only available because it is on VOD, but that's a Blu-ray um, that we're seeing there. Um,
Whoa, yeah, collector's edition with a whole bunch of stuff.
yeah. And we are running a little short on time. For this first session, we're about to bring on our guest Paolo Zelati to talk horror movies in general in celebration of Halloween. Did want to say, since we got some time left over, Rumours. I reviewed Rumours, Guy Madden's or Madden and the Johnsons' latest movie. We're going to call them Madden and the Johnsons from now on because
Yeah.
they are collaborating with Guy Madden. Um, and I wrote the review, so those of you who read the review have heard this story before, but I just wanted to mention, so it was kind of shocking to see a Guy Madden movie in a AMC theater, you know, and I expected to be the only one in the theater, and then five other people came in. And I was thinking, well, maybe there are five other Guy Madden fans in this metro area who happen to want to see it. But I just really hope that they are strangers who just wandered in, not knowing what they're in for. And so I don't know
Yeah,
what that says
I
about
guess
me.
yeah, what was the movie poster for that, I
The
guess?
movie poster is not really very revealing of anything. I'm not going to bring it up. Let me go ahead. It's just like
Was it the blurry purple one?
no, it's got a like a cylinder with the character's
Oh,
faces
okay,
on
that
it
one, yeah.
and some like brain-like substance. It's a strange looking thing. It's got Kate Blanchett. I
Yeah.
was just hoping that people had wandered in to see it.
Did they all stay?
Yeah. And I don't know what that says about me. Maybe I'm a sadist. Maybe I just
You
like
want
the
people
idea.
to be able to experience new things, Greg.
Yeah.
That's a good impulse.
So, but the downside is at the end of the moment, the five people all started loudly. At the end of the movie, the five people all started loudly complaining. That was terrible. That made no sense. Uh, Somebody said, "Who did Kate Blanchett owe money to?" A guy said, "I wanted to leave, but I thought it had to get better and start making sense at some point." And for some reason, that greatly delighted me that those
They
people had
sat
to
through it though. That's
They
good.
did. They sat through it. And I think that they'll remember it in the future. But it does prove that Madden has not gone mainstream despite this movie getting much better distribution than any movie he's made before. So that's my rumor story. And I do recommend the movie, which is very different than a normal Guy Madden movie, except that it's strange and has the same sense of humor. Uh, it's a story of G7 leaders stranded during the apocalypse, basically, and acting very ineffectually. And with that, unless Giles, you have something to say in the remaining minute, I think we will just bring Paolo Zelati on.
Yeah, let's bring them on. We've traveled all the way to Mantua for this, so let's hunker down with our author buddy.
Going by through the magic of today's internet, we will go to Mantua in just a minute and see you then. No time will pass for you, although for us, time is kind of,
Time will go backwards.
yeah, time will go backwards, right? All right. See you soon. Bye bye. Hello, and we're back with our guest, Paolo Zelati from Mantua, Italy, to talk about horror movies in general because this is our Halloween celebration. Hi, Paolo. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Sure. And there's a lot to talk about with Paulo. We do want to mention sort of the reason we chose to have him on is because of this book right up here, American Nightmares, which has just come out in English translation. It had been in Italian before,
Yeah.
but it's just come out here, and we'll have a link to that. There's some other exciting things that Paolo is up to, and we should probably start with that because he says this is the question he gets asked the most, and I wasn't aware of this up until he mentioned that. I didn't know that I had heard of this project, but I didn't know you were involved with it. It is Twilight of the Dead. What can you tell us about Twilight of the Dead?
Well, it's the last chapter of George Romero saga, and it's supposed to be connected. No, it is connected to Land of the Dead. So basically, that's the continuity. And is the way George wanted to end his saga, both narratively and conceptually, like the whole idea behind this movie that has been developed during all these years are going to be ended in a wonderful way in this movie. So I wrote the treatment with George, the from my idea, and George actually understood that the saga wasn't over, and I just needed to give him that little small push in order to get into the mood of that. And he was really, really excited. We came up with all the story in 5 days. We were spending a holiday in Florida, and it came out like that. So basically, then we wrote the treatment, and George started to write the script, and then all of a sudden he got sick and he passed away in a couple of months. So after that, I was really heartbroken and everything, because I was he was a good friend of mine, and really I grew up with his movies, and then we became friends, and so it was very hard. So I didn't even think to get to the movie, and but then I wanted to write a book about that. I wanted to that the fans all over the world, they needed to know how George wanted to end the most important, influential saga of the modern horror cinema. So I did it, and I put the treatment, the subject of the movie in the middle, and I did explain what you want to do and everything. So I was supposed to get some little essays from all the people that work with them, Tom Savini, John Russo, all the team. And so when I sent the book to Suzanne Romero, she said, look, I think we really should, this is great. George really wanted to do that. People are asking me for undone project by George, and I think we really should do that. So I said, okay, let's absolutely, if you want to do that, but I really would love to be the one writing the script, because, I really know what you wanted. So I called two friends of mine from LA, John Eder, a great screenwriter, and Robert Lucas, and I went there, and we wrote the script in all the screenplay, and it was like 2019. Then, of course, we work on that, and then the COVID was like ruining the whole thing. And so right now, after all these years, we are very, very close, thank God, and crossing fingers. And we've been working with producers, and right now I really hope that is going to be something very, very good will be announced very soon. That's what I can tell you.
Well, I'm pretty sure that is people love Romero and the Dead series, not just a trilogy series. So it's very marketable there. So there's no doubt that people are going to be interested in it, and that's really pretty exciting. And you just did this because. Did you meet Romero because you were interviewing him for the American Nightmares?
Exactly. We've been friends. No, actually, I met him before, when I was terminating my university thesis degree that I did on John Carpenter, and then it became my first book in Italian. And then I met George in Turin. It was 2001, right after
9/11.
Yeah, exactly, 9/11. So and I interviewed him from my thesis, asking him about his opinion about John Carpenter, because I knew they were friends, and about the social second degree of horror movies at their best. And then, of course, this friendship started to became real during the whole process that brought me to write American Nightmare during 10 years. And George, of course, was one of the most important for me to get, because American Nightmares is not just about talking about these guys and their careers and anecdote stories. There is also that, but the main aim of the book is the political and social issues that have been drove by these movies in that period. The new American horror, starting with Night of the Living Dead and ending the late 80s. So basically, it's all what happened in American society through those movies. So yeah, and I met George several times, and then I organized in Italy in 2017 a big celebration of George and his movies in Lucca Film Festival. So George and Suzanne, they came there. Michael Dougherty is editor, came too, and a lot of people came from all over Italy to pay homage to George. He was very moved. I think that was his last very pleasant journey. Like so after that, we went to holiday together, and the idea came up like that, like talking about his movies, actually.
Oh, great. Hey, Giles, do you have any questions, or should I just forge on?
Well, I guess I have maybe just a quick thing, since you mentioned the book that we're going to be talking about, American Nightmares, which is a collection of somewhat 35 interviews, 33, excuse me, 33 interviews you did with filmmakers, and you say that Romero's Dawn of the Dead is kind of the start of this new American Nightmare that you cover in these interviews.
I mean, yes, Romero is basically the one, yes, that is really started the whole thing. Even if we can talk about something that came before, but is really with Night of the Living Dead that the whole thing started.
Yeah, I guess it was just sort of occurred to me, maybe somewhat whimsically here. What would you say is perhaps like effectively the final movie in this stretch of the American Nightmare before whatever the following age of horror cinema was? What would be like, your defining sort of bookend on the other side of this, if you have one?
So basically the last one. Well, I can say something like, it's Brian Hughes now. It's like, let's call it The Dentist 2, So I'm talking about the dates you mentioned, because you asked me a very specific question. So it's more about the period than a specific title, I guess. And it's early 90s, because of course Society, if I'm not wrong, is 1990, 89, 90. Yeah. So that period, I think.
Okay, so it's a good 3 decades or so there. So yeah, that was just sort of wondering what that might be. So yeah, Greg, if you want to plow on, I'll chime in as I've got.
I guess just to follow up on that on the timing, there is at least one, and probably more directors that you interviewed who did their horror work actually a little before George Romero, and I'm thinking of one of our favorites, which is Jack Hill's Spider Baby.
Yeah, man.
So if Romero starts it, was I think that Spider Baby is such an interesting movie because it does have that classic like 30s, 40s Universal horror haunted house feel, but it also feels like it's very much looking forward into something new. Absolutely. And I think it's aware of its own ridiculousness in a way that other movies weren't. So why did you want to include Spider Baby specifically in that period?
Yeah, exactly for what you said. I mean, that movie, I've been talking about this issue with Jack, of course, you can say you can read it in the book, and with George, that mentioned also Carnival of Souls, Mm-hmm. But then I said, look, George, I understand that, but those were, part of a whole heritage, at least the structure of that, So the real horror coming into, now and then, into the American family, into the real life, the nowadays life, started with Night of the Living Dead. And part of this is happening also in Spider Baby, but according to Jack, at least, without any conscious thoughts behind that. Certainly the structure is still, as you said, connected to the old classic horrors and the haunted house and stuff. But the real deal that really wanted me to connect the starting of new horror with that is the family, the family situation. This family that is no longer the yappy American family that used to be until now. And after 68, mostly in the 70s, with divorce, with abortion and everything else, everything changed. And Spider Baby really depicts a very weird and unusual kind of new American family. And also the sexuality is really, 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 came up like never before, I guess, before Spider Baby, and then of course with those great actors, being friends with Sid Haig a lot because I've been doing a lot of convention with Italian masters, and I always ask Sid about that movie too. And yeah, it's a great movie, weird but great.
All right. And unless Giles has a question, I'll go ahead with another.
Yeah, I'll go for it, Greg. I'll chime in a little
All
bit.
right. Well, so I guess I'm kind of curious. So you're Italian. In America, there are a lot of people who are specifically interested in Italian horror. So I'm wondering, in Italy, how is American horror viewed? And did you write your book hoping to maybe change the way that Italians looked at American horror or help them understand things better?
No. I mean, of course, the whole idea of making people understand what is behind horror movies is true in the United States, in Russia, and in Italy, because a lot of people doesn't look these movies the way they should. They underestimate that. So that's a general question. But in Italy, and mostly in Europe, as Joe Dante underlines many times, your movies of that period has been discovered much, much, much earlier. I mean, the people like that. Let's talk about Alfred Hitchcock, that became an author thanks to the Cahiers du Cinéma. The French guys really discovered even the film noir before even the term existed. And so Joe Dante, for example, was very happy for me to do that. And he was hoping 10 years ago that the book is going to be translated in English also, because I have a lot of friends I grew up with, movie critics like me and journalists that really grew up with American horror, and they do understand their value, but it's still a little part of the audience, but that's everywhere, So yeah, the answer is I really hope that with this book, I could help someone to change their mind, about what horror movies are seeing, just like in entertainment for kids, or butchery, or what they say about horror movies. In fact, if you think about that thing that people has been describing for years, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as one of my favorite movies, as the most violent and bloody, because they have never seen it. Because there is just no more than a couple of drops of blood in the whole fucking movie. I mean, they haven't seen it. So, you know what I mean? You guys, before talking about stuff, you should know about that. And also because fantastic cinema and literature also always been the right vehicle to talk about these issues, the social and, the fears, anxieties, and desires of entire generation went through the fantastic fiction. So let's talk about Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or The War of the Worlds. And it's all being done, 1984, of course. It's all being done to talk about the present using a disguise of the fantastic future or alterated present. So that's what I love about horror.
Absolutely. It is interesting that you consider this like 1968 to about 1990 to be a classic period. I do think that horror kind of after 1990 in America kind of gets into a slump. Too many slasher remakes and things like that. I do think now is a really interesting period. It's kind of emerged with people like Jordan Peele and Robert Eggers and Ari Aster. How do you feel about what's going on right now?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, you're right. I've just read a wonderful book that came out in Italian, written by a friend of mine, Pier Maria Bocchi, that is analyzing the horror through the decades, and he calls the 90s as a he said in the 90s we have the transparent horror. That is something that it almost didn't happen without any, you know what I mean? It's basically what you said. So after that, there is, first of all, horror is cyclical. And so that's a fact that nobody can change. And I had the feeling in the last 10 years that the cycle was a little bit, steady. I can understand some of these new movies, but I hate just the idea of this, elevated horror thing. I just can't take it. For example, because growing up with these movies, I know what you need to make political movies, and it's not what Ari Aster does. I hate the guy. I mean, I really hate those movies so much. I can't take them. I can understand something else better. I understand what they want to do, but even a movie like Us, come on, it's in your face. It's just like those people never saw the masters who did that, how they did that. It's just like a movie made by Thesis, but they are forgetting the movie needs to be entertained as a first thing. It's like Joker 2. I mean, I understand what they wanted to do, and the idea is more brave, more interesting, more genius than the first movie. But the idea is one thing. Thesis is one thing. The whole thing about this contrast on the industry, everything that you can see in that movie is really great. But once it gets on the film, it doesn't work, and it's just fucking boring. Boring. Even the use of the musical, I get it. It's a great idea of using that language to express their psychosis, but it doesn't work. It's boring. It's boring, and that's the worst thing you can do with all these people that I interview. The ones that agree about horror being political, some of them don't. For example, you had to try to speak with Dick Donner about that. It would just laugh on your face. Richard Donner was a great guy, very intelligent and smart, but he absolutely didn't think that horror needed to have a message, for example. But all these people, they know, how you have to do this. You don't have to hammer people on their head. You have the value of entertainment comes first, as Herschel Gordon Lewis used to say. I do like some of these new movies, and I understand that they are actually, even if I like it or not, they are interpreting our time, the whole woke thing, women empowerment. But stuff like Barbarian or The Man is just something I just can't stand, man. I can't stand it. I can listen to people explaining that to me, and I can agree with them, but still I don't like them.
I wonder part of the difference maybe where it's coming from, because these movies now are being backed by relatively big studios and have some art house credibility, whereas the period you're talking about in the 70s, horror movies were kind of considered trash by the mainstream people, and people who worked in them were working, a lot of times to put them into drive-ins and grindhouses rather than the big movie palaces. And so they were horror movies were a little closer to the underground back during that period, and a little more punk maybe than they are today.
I see your point, but what you said is it's even worse thinking from that point of view, because that means that today to do a good horror movie you have to be hearty, you have to be something, you know, you have to be experimental or not understandable from the major of the people is not, it's wrong. It's wrong. I do, but this is my personal opinion. Movies like Hereditary or the other things he did, I don't even remember the name. Those titles are, you know, they try to do something with the cinephile spirit, but you know, on the other hand, they want to be super auteur, and they don't. And Ari Aster, for example, I don't know if he realized that he's getting comical, but I don't know if it's something that he wants to do or it comes naturally. But I really don't get it. And if the reason is the one you said, well, okay, so now we have to accept that to go on the big screen. I mean, I understand right now is the worst moment in history for cinema, and mostly for the theatrical. And let me tell you, I know that. But movies like Terrifier 3 is a simple idea. It's something that people wanted to enjoy and laugh about. That, you know, it made $18 million, man. So maybe people want to have fun. It doesn't mean that doing something with a second level of reading doesn't have to be fun, and you have to make a lecture or hit me on the head with your hammer and be boring and just metaphorical. You know, I love metaphors, you know, but these movies, come on.
They should, maybe the metaphor should come more naturally rather than being.
It's just, yeah.
Because I mean, so like something like Return of the or Night of the Living Dead, it's a very simple, entertaining story, right? And it's going to address current issues kind of by accident, almost. I mean,
absolutely. And George always been very honest about that. He was against some overthought interpretations. You know, some of those things came into those movies because that was the period, and stuff of the period come into your movies you want or you don't want. It's a fact. But stuff like using Ben, you know, Dwayne Jones, black actor as a main character, wasn't you know, a conscious decision. It just was the best of his friends to play that role. And George always told me that I regret now that because I couldn't use that thing more if I was aware of what I was doing with that. But then we get to the end where you can see the posse coming and killing him and dragging him away, and you really can see the Ku Klux Klan there and what was going on for real. So that's not a metaphor at all. That's in your face, but doing properly. I don't know if you guys agree with me.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's, you know, also in a similar way, you know, that movie was made during Vietnam, right? So you see all the carnage, but it's not about Vietnam. It's not a direct metaphor for Vietnam, but people watching it will probably.
Well, you know, talking about Vietnam, the masterpiece is a Bob Clark Death Dream. That's really a masterpiece. Is a drama disguised as a horror movie that you know, it tells you guys what really was Vietnam in and back in America. So that movie and Apocalypse Now for me are the two greatest movies ever made about Vietnam War. One on the spot, the other one in the United States. So the other thing, but that's a technical thing that really was bringing the feeling of that pain that a lot of parents were, you know, experiencing, and is using the camera, the trembling camera, hand camera to shoot the movie, like Last House on the Left. And that style just came into the American conscience thanks to the news coming from Vietnam. Before that, never happened. And horror movies of that period use that style to, you know, to shoot like horrible and painful stories. So that's the comparison that really connects Vietnam to those movies at its best, I guess. Not everybody, for example, if you think about John Carpenter, he always had a very classical style. You know, Halloween is a fantastic puzzle of incredible cinematic magic, but all structure from different point of view. So it's not something that every person had their own style. But if you think about Last House on the Left, or even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you understand what I'm talking about.
Right. Giles, any questions?
Yeah, getting to your book of interviews there, I was familiar with some of the names and then did a quick look on IMDb for all the ones I was unfamiliar. There are a bunch that are directors, a number of screenwriters, some are both. I was wondering if they provided different, I don't know, either takes or opinions on horror, you know, from the screenwriter camp versus the director camp. Or if it was, you know, overall just parallel.
Basically, it's the same thing. Basically, it's the same. Also, because let's just, for example, I mean, the most important one is the godfather of all of us, is Richard Matheson. Richard Matheson is the godfather of the fantastic modern cinema and literature. You know, from, you know, thanks to I Am a Legend, and not only that, thanks to everything he wrote. And that was the most exciting thing for me to do, to spend one full day with Richard Matheson, talking about even, you know, political meaning, or, you know, it's just, but of course, Richard was part of the old generation. So he would just hate everything that was like splatter, or something that, you know, he liked terror over horror, you know. Or great directors, the king of independent like John Sayles, we were talking about these horror scripts, and mostly Piranha and The Howling. So he was one of the most, most keen to admit that what he was doing, writing that, was exactly what you can see on the screen, you know. So yeah, no, I can't say there is a difference. Probably only Richard Matheson, but Matheson is something apart. Is the god of all of us.
Let me. We don't have all that much more time, but so I did want to get into a couple of other things. Maybe for example, when people visit your website, the first thing, the paolozelati.com, first thing that comes up is movie posters.
Is .it.
.it, sorry. It'll be in the link correctly. Yeah. paolozelati.it. But first thing that comes up is movie posters. And so is that as much of a passion as writing about movies, more, or...
Well, it's part of that. It's really part of that. It's part of my work as well. I own the largest Italian movie poster collection known. And mostly, you wouldn't believe me, but the main thing of my collection is American film noir through the Italian posters. Casablanca is right here, for example. Gilda is there. And but another news I can tell you about that is I'm going to publish with the same publisher of American Nightmares a series of books that I've been working on for 12 years. It's a history of exploitation cinema through Italian posters. So it's basically from 1960 up to, you know, it's 30 years. The 30 years, 60s, 70s, and 80s, 30 years of the golden age of genre cinema, exploitation cinema. So every single genre will have his book or books. So exploitation, we're going to start with Italian horror and Gothic, and you will see everything from Black Sunday up to the last full cheese movie of the late 80s.
Good stuff. Yeah, Giles, do you have a question or?
Yeah, that actually ties in with your movie poster collection and your love of the static visual representation of the film there. The cover of your book, I imagine the art for that must have been something you wanted a very specific kind of thing for. I wonder if you might just talk very briefly about the artist,
Sure.
about that, and how that came to be.
I love that because I love to speak about that because this is a painting, original painting, made by the very good friend of mine, is very talented, famous Italian painter, Vittorio Bustafa, that create this painting just for me. We chat a little bit about what I wanted, the concept, the people, the boogeymans that I really wanted to see, and it's Michael and Leatherface first of all, and in the back you can interpret that as a zombies, the Romero zombies, or all the other dark shadows of the American horror, basically. And I love this one. I hope I might do other languages for American Nightmares. I've been having some requests, and I really hope I can use this painting for all the versions of American Nightmares.
All right. Well, just get the permission from your artist friend.
Oh, I have.
Let's see. Completely divorced from your work, I just have a question because I'm curious. This is our celebratory Halloween episode, and I'm wondering, how big a deal is Halloween in Italy? Do they celebrate it like they do here in America?
No. It became a little bit bigger during the last, let's say, 10, 15 years. They do trick or treat, even if it's not like a huge phenomenon, not in every city. But they do that. They do Halloween parties. But it's really, I would say, 30% or even less than the American celebration, unfortunately.
Do you personally consider it it's a horror milestone here? Everybody, even people who don't usually pay attention to horror, will pay attention to horror movies at this time of year here. So it's kind of nice that for that reason.
Absolutely. I mean, personally, I always like to carve a pumpkin. Every year I do a different face, and I put it in front of my window. And for more than 15 years in row, I've always watched Halloween that day, no matter what.
Excellent.
The first one of the day.
Giles, do you want to get in the final question?
Yeah, so we had a good chat about horror writers. Your book, American Nightmares, is out now in English. You told us your hometown is Mantua, Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Can you recommend a restaurant there?
Yes. It's called Grifone Bianco, is the white griffon, and it's one of the main square here close to my house. Is a Piazza Erbe, and is my favorite restaurant in town.
Excellent. So next time you find yourself, listeners, in Mantua, you've got a place to go.
Absolutely. If anytime you want me here, guys, you just drop me an email. I'll be happy to talk with you about weird movies.
Oh, good. And if we go to Mantua, maybe we'll have a place to sleep.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. You got 30 seconds. Is there any upcoming project you want to plug really quickly?
Well, these poster books are really the biggest. And of course, second only to the Twilight of the Dead. We hope to be very, very close to the start of production.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on,
great.
Paolo Zelati.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Again. Goodbye, everybody. We'll be back next week. And that should be it.
Weird. Yeah, I guess that is the word for it. Weird.